And we are back again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World Championship Series here in Jönköping, Sweden, as we wrap up day number 1 here in this beautiful city. I am joined on the desk by Muslim and Todd, two of my favorite European friends. Nice TVT series there, Ben, right?
Beautiful TVT series, and we really got to see how they stylistically are different. Euthermal, this is the one time I've ever seen him be the defender in a series, but he did it very well. Like in the early game, didn't really go his way in any of the games. Kelazor's micro early on really shone through, but Euthermal just knew when to pounce, and the fact that we got to see a very good high-level TVT between these players so early on in the tournament, it was great.
It was really awesome. And before we get into our next match, we're going to be jumping into game 2 of TLO versus Neeb. But Todd, you had a moment from the game number 1 that you wanted to show us.
Yeah, so I showed you guys earlier how this game was going. Remember, there was the proxy Stargate up there that did some damage. TLO, he got very quickly to Broodlords despite all the action. Like, they were attacking into each other, not really trying to kill as much Walker. In particular, TLO, he was trading Hydra Bane against some of the Archons at the front from Neeb, who now was trying to take a 5th base with the golds. And TLO just stayed on, for the most part, on 4 bases with that gold base, and he was like, I'm going to go for the push of death with Broodlord. So now he kind of chases his army out there. He forces a recall. Eventually, there's just a few units down there. Goes for a trade on the left-hand side, pulls back on time, and he's just going to go for a push for which Neeb is just not ready. He was getting a fleet beacon, he has Stargates, but they're not really making anything. They started 2 Void Rays, and it's just too late. TLO with another brilliant Broodlord usage, just like we saw him do earlier, will just basically completely power through this army here of Neeb and win game number 1 very solidly.
All right, yeah, pretty insane push getting the Broodlords out far before there was anything available to defend them, and that does mean that as we go into this next map, which we'll be jumping into very shortly, it is elimination potential now for Neeb, down 0-1 in this best of 3. We're going to kick it over straight to that game. Enjoy our last match of the night. It's going to be Neeb versus TLO.
And we will be launching into this series. It is a big one, and of course, introducing these players without any further ado, spawning up here in the top right-hand side, representing Ting, it is Neeb.
And over here on the left bottom side, we're looking at the main base of that other member of Team Liquid. It is the one and only TLO. Once again, game number 1 of this best of 3 was played on Proxima. TLO earlier today had a series against Hearthstone where he played Proxima and Abyssal. And thank you, Pig, for being just as confused about that as I was, because I expected to see maps like this. Defender's Landing, Odyssey. You know, if Protoss is absolutely crazy and doesn't veto Blood Boil, show me Blood Boil. But showing both Abyssal and Proxima in a best of 3?
It's crazy, you know, they call him the Wunderwunsch, they call him Dr. Creative Dario, and he is a guy who has his own unique view on the game, but definitely defying convention by not vetoing 2 of the strongest maps for Protoss in the pool, the maps which are left over from the previous season. And now here on Defender's Landing, it looks like Neeb has said, you know what? I'm pretty sure he's the one who's vetoed Blood Boil and Odyssey here. I'm pretty sure he said, you know what? I guess I can play Defender's Landing. I am going to wall that low ground. He's walled off the choke point in the main front area. He's going to wall off the other side. And he did block that hatchery, so TLO had to go for the 3rd base first. And so far, both players actually building up in a very standard format. But this is a much smaller map than Proxima. This is not going to be that same drawn-out game. Usually, aggressive pushes are much more powerful.
This is already bizarre to me, just the fact that it's standard. We see 1 gate Twilight. Like, every single time I've ever done this, I've got 7 roaches in my natural the next minute. Because it just seems like such a risky build, what Neeb is going for here. And obviously, he could still take this many ways. He's going to try to get a cheeky drone kill here with his Adept, but that ain't going to work. Keeping the Adept alive is quite important, though. But the Adept is not as strong as it used to be. Barely survives there with 4 HP. Okay, we see the robotics facility being warped in as well.
That's an Archon drop. Gotta be that, man.
Yeah.
I think this is good here on this map, but it doesn't have too much dead space, so it's not crazy powerful, but it should be good for keeping him safe. Ooh, that's a real pain. It's interesting because there's a few different ways Zergs play against this build order, right, Roddy? And a lot of them like to try and deny that 3rd base whenever, you know, the Archons are hitting them. Force the Archon drop to come home and try and defend the 3rd base and get an edge that way.
counterattacks are always something you have to worry about if you open up with those 4 DTs. You know, because often you have a single Immortal at home and an overcharge, but if your opponent makes a crazy amount of roaches, you know, on some of the larger maps like Ascension to Aya, you have time to maybe squeeze out a second Immortal. That ain't gonna be the case on this map, so it's really important that Neeb keeps a close eye on the amount of roaches that TLO will produce to deal with his Archons. Is it just the right amount to deal with the Archon drop, or is it more than just a couple roaches, and will TLO try to steamroll Neeb? Once again, tournament life on the line here for our WCS Austin champion, as Neeb lost the upper bracket match in this group stage against Petit Drogo 2-1.
Yeah, Drogo came out with some really great form there in the PvP, and now Neeb has to make it happen in the matchup, which he's been quite vocal about struggling in lately. And this is going to be interesting. I really do think the threat of those mid-game aggressive pushes is just so large, Rodian. Realistically, I think if Neeb's just going to be very careful for that, he's going to go for some sort of kind of 2.5 base pressure at least, maybe with the recall. But I think he's got to be very active on the map and keep an eye on exactly what TLO is up to.
It's crazy to me to see how fast Neeb is expanding on a map this small. I mean, this would just terrify me. Everything about this terrifies me. And what's also important, even if your DTs don't do much damage near the drone line, I think it's really important to snipe a couple of these creep tumors, because it's like 7 or 8 creep tumors and there is creep knocking at your front door as a Protoss.
Yeah.
It's really important Neeb shuts this down, otherwise it's going to be so incredibly easy and comfortable for TLO to counterattack.
And he's only just spotted this Roach counterattack now. He's going to have to drop the overcharge. He's biding his time.
Why is he not doing
Neeb here being very patient. Doesn't want to drop it too early, but I mean, you've got to drop it. You can't just let those pylons go down.
He will,
Neeb
though.
with a big blunder here.
And now he's supply blocked, so he can't wipe in a defensive DT. Instead, he's going to get the Archons here. I think a single overcharge really would have made his life a tiny bit easier there, but maybe he just felt those pylons were going to go down anyway. At least he rebuilt them very quickly. I would love to see an Observer. I know you need Immortals potentially to deal with massive counters, but he needs to do something about the creep.
Yeah, that creep highway going across the middle. If there's one thing Dario is known for, it's not necessarily spreading creep all over the map, but he will get a highway to your base very, very quickly.
He's effective. German efficiency. He's like, I don't need to cover the corners. I'll cover the center of the map, which is much more important.
And he's doing it very well so far.
7 Overlords on the production tab, Pig.
Oh, that's usually a big sign of an attack that's to come. He says, I'm done building drones. I'm probably just going to be massing units. However, he's going to be going for the infestation pit. I feel that's got to be a swarm host infestation pit. We haven't seen any Hydra tech. Yeah. I can't imagine you're going to see Roach Ravager into Broodlord. That's not really going to work too well. And no Evo chambers for TLO just yet. He's really focusing on the here and now. Says, yeah, this is a more aggressive map. I'm going to rush up that army.
Pig is completely unaware of all these roaches on the left side of the map, and don't forget, TLO is just producing units behind this. It's important that Neeb is paying attention. Some good force fields though, and that Immortal and Overcharge are going to keep this base safe for now. Very good first hold there by Neeb. But like you said, you got to worry about the Swarmos follow-up as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's pure unupgraded Roach Ravager right now, which is a very scary army if there aren't too many Immortals, but I guess charge isn't done yet. It all comes down to that Immortal count and positioning. And does TLO, does Neeb realize, yeah, I think he spotted this. He knows how much is here. He's got force fields, Archons, Immortals, Overcharge. Neeb is so well set up for this position.
This is a great game so far by Neeb. He makes it look easy. Well, I think it's so incredibly difficult on a map like this to just stabilize. He has a pretty good idea what he's up against. I think the only thing he didn't scout is that infestation pit, but this can be the first time as TLO drops a corrosive bow on his own Roach.
That Warp Prism being a little bit cheeky there, does bait that out. Swarm hosts are on the way now, though, and that is going to complicate things. This is a tough map to get back in to defend that main base from those Locusts. And Neeb here will stagnate a little bit on 3 bases. However,
what do you think is the best answer against like 7, 8, 9 Swarm hosts?
I really feel it comes down to your mobility. And actually, I was talking to this a lot with a Laser and Drogo when we did a show the other week, a little show match. And we were actually discussing the idea of sometimes it is worth it if they build a lot of Swarm hosts to actually put 2 Immortals in a Warp Prism, because they can actually kill the Swarm host. The problem with an Archon drop chasing the Swarm host is it takes forever to actually kill them, so they can just run away. But if you drop 2 Immortals with +1, you'll actually 3-shot those Swarm hosts, and that can work really well.
Well, Neeb is going to try to go up to 4 bases. Obviously, this is not really a fight that TLO wants to commit to, but he just wants to be annoying. The first Locust will show up in the main base of Neeb, and I'm very curious to see what he's going to do to deal with this.
Massive engagement on the left-hand side here. TLO really wants to do the just keep forcing him out of position on the left, looking for damage with the corrosive vials, and just keep throwing locusts into the main.
So do you think it's an option? Because this is personally what I like to do, but obviously it's very different. But like perhaps a double Stargate, if TLO decides to add a few more Swarmos on, if he goes up to like 8 or 9, I think Phoenixes can be excellent.
I think it's a little bit too late to go reactively because it will take so long to build up to it. But I think, yeah, it's always an option. Air units are great for zoning them out, so I definitely can't hate on it too much. And they're always going to be useful if your opponent loves Broodlords. And what has TLO shown in every single ZVP this game, this tournament, Roddy? It's always been a very fast, surprising Broodlord timing. And almost without fail, he's caught his opponents off guard.
Good overcharge there, because you don't really want to lose your cybernetic score in this phase in the game. That's just frustrating. Neeb desperately trying to get his sword base up. TLO wants to get one more cancel, but this time Neeb is going to position his units where they were supposed to be. TLO just being annoying here, just being very aggressive, but not truly committing to anything. Neeb seems like he's had enough, and he's going to try to do something on the other side of the map with his War Prism.
He's doing a very good job so far, is Neeb, of defending all these different locations. Yeah, he's getting scratched a little bit, but he hasn't taken any serious wounds. His, you know, his armor's intact. His fourth base is up. He's got the gases going there. His High Templar Archives is now finished.
This feels like a good moment for Neeb to perhaps try to make something happen on the other side of the map, even though TLO was morphing 25 Banelings, with Baneling speed about to finish up. That Great Aspire on the way. Do you really just want to sit back and let that Great Aspire finish up? I mean, this has been a hectic game, and it's very hard for Neeb to keep a close eye on how far along is the attack exactly of my opponent. But I feel if TLO can get Broodlords out against this Archon Immortal army, well, we didn't see the entirety of Proxima, but I have the feeling we're going to witness something quite similar.
Yeah, this is going to be really tough because Neeb
that's a lot of circling.
Oh, if they get in the main, that's going to be great. Locust's going to launch as well and fight these Pylons and Immortals. A big charge lot warp in coming into reinforce, but the Zerglings have made it into the main base. They are starting to cause some damage. The overcharge is buying a lot of time here for those probes to escape, but it looks like that +2 upgrade is going to get cancelled, Roddy.
Yeah, this is just fantastic value there for TLO. It's not even just that he's able to get a kill on that forge. The most important thing, he keeps that army of Neeb on Neeb's side of the map. And look at that Great Aspire. It's about done. Like, TLO had no dreams of ambitions of killing everything there in the main. All he wants to do is keep Neeb at bay, and he was successfully able to do that. Now those Broodlords are morphing. It's still going to be a little bit close.
Whoa, the Banelings just rolling into the Archon splash, getting next to no damage done. He's on top of it. The Broodlords haven't finished morphing. The Archons and Immortals are pressing in, Roddy.
And the Swarmos were a little bit out of position as well. And a couple of Locusts are not going to be enough. Look at this super clutch timing right before these Broods are done. TLO is dropping very, very quickly in supply. A couple of transfuses will land. Are these two Broodlords enough to push his army back?
Oh, he's actually hanging on for now, but he's lost a lot of his expensive units, has TLO. Keep in mind, Blink is almost done. There's Stalkers in there as well. And the big problem here is TLO's been down at 57 workers for a long time. Neeb is up at 76 probes. He's got a much bigger income. Every second that goes by, even though there's Broodlords out, I feel like things get better and better for Neeb.
It feels so long for TLO right now. Before those Broodlords are done, if he would have 6 or 7 Broods, he can absolutely keep this alive. Now he's going to have to be very careful. A couple of Roaches just get one-shotted by these Immortals. Neeb wants to get this hatch. Most of the Broods have finished up though, but Neeb with the forward blink.
The blink goes in, and those Broodlords starting to fall. The Cocoon's going down before they can finish. There's only 3 Broodlords left, and they're just getting focused down one by one. Remember, guys, the upgrades, there were just no upgrades for TLO that whole game. Only +1 melee. And Neeb ties it up 1-1.
What a sick victory there by Neeb with his tournament live on the line here at Defenders Landing. I really like the way that TLO played, even if early on it didn't really go his way. I like how he was looking for openings. I love the Swarmos on this map. I think it was excellent. I love the run-by into the main, and I really felt that TLO bought enough time for his Broodlords, but I blinked twice big, and there were Archons and Immortals under those Broodlords. I was like, wow, Neeb didn't waste a second after cleaning up that run-by.
Yep, TLO there bringing out some good tactics for that map, making use of that great position with the Swarmos. But and we think about how Neeb dealt with those Swarmos. You were asking it, Roddy. just a warp prism, a couple of charge lots, and he actually zoned them out. He was still taking a bit of damage from them, but it was never massive. Of course, that mineral line on defenders landing in the main base is actually very far back from where the Locusts launch, and they killed a few gateways. Yeah, they launched onto the cybernetics core, some pylons, but Neeb was so good at splitting his army between his natural and his fourth. He did that like the master that we know he is, one of the best players at defending multiple locations at once.
And once again, the final map of this series is going to be played on Abyssal Reef. TLO is just world's friendliest Zerg.
And yet he's doing so well against Protoss this tournament. It's this point where you've got to start being a little bit afraid that he's actually crazy enough to let you play on Proxima and Abyssal Reef. Look at how this series has gone so far. It's the opposite of what you'd expect. Yeah. TLO's lost one Proxima, the map which is more Protoss favored. He's lost on Defender's Landing, the map which is a bit more Zerg favored. So Abyssal Reef, definitely one of the best maps for Protoss. You know, to quote a laser, you know, it's unfair. He says, I hate this map. I always veto it. And, you know, it's funny to see TLO just happy to play here. It's choke point central. Yep. The Adept pressures, the Archons get to your side very quickly, but at the same time, it's quite easy for Protoss to defend any big Zerg swarm because of those choke points.
Before we hop into game number 3 here, a very important game number 3, as this is obviously the last match of Group A. I've got some updates for you of some of the other groups. Do you know who won Group B? Semper. That's right, Semper won Group B over Nurcho, our Canadian Terran player, with a fantastic showing here. Obviously, we had several winnings. Snoot has advanced over Lambo. Obviously, we knew the sort of won his group. Elaser and Bly both advanced, so that's good news as well. And, well, that's about it. But Semper winning that group over Nurcho, I think that's quite the shocker.
An impressive performance from the Canadian player, newcomer to WCS. But let's see what will happen in this series. Spawning here in the bottom right-hand side of Abyssal Reef. Representing Ting, it is Neeb.
Still the reigning champ of WCS.
Already has his spot in BlizzCon secured, but this guy up here, he is fighting for those points. He wants that chance to go there. In the blue, representing Team Liquid, it is TLO.
Points are still important for Neeb, of course, as well. I mean, there's a lot of money on the line. This is a $100,000 tournament, $25,000 for first. Obviously, getting 25K in Austin was nice. But why settle for 25, Pig, if you're in the running for 50? Or 75 if he wins in Valencia as well. But obviously for TLO, it's incredibly important. But for Neeb, points still matter too. Because I think at the end of the day, it also comes down to seeding, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm pretty sure those points do end up calculating into that as well. And I mean, you said it yourself. It's the money. It's the pride. You know, Neeb had such a great year in 2016. He picked up so many championships, and he would love to add a European title to his trophy case.
A double hatch before spawning pool opening over here for TLO, and I truly wonder what Neeb response is going to be. Obviously, in the old days, there were some ways to punish this with some sort of pylon pressure, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. But I wonder maybe like a double Adept opening and just excellent Adept control.
Looking at the positioning of that third base, I mean, honestly, I would say just Archon drop. Do the same opening as last game, because it is so hard to defend that high ground ledge above your third mineral line, and that can rotate into the main base so easily. So, I mean, definitely you can open up with a couple of Adepts and put on some pretty hard pressure, but I wouldn't mind seeing any of the normal openings, and even Oracles can access all of those mineral lines very easy when you set up your bases like this. TLO doesn't have any edges to zone them out.
Yeah, Twilight goes down, but all the way in the back of the base. So it could still be, of course, the Archon drop that we've seen so many times. But that is that second Adept. And in the old days, Neeb was always so successful with 2 Adepts early on. Obviously, Zerg players got a lot better in defending it. Adepts became a lot worse. They lost some of their vision while shading. They lost 10 HP as well. But this is still Neeb, one of the absolute best when it comes to Adept control.
Yeah, you know, he knows that it is a very delayed spawning pool, so sending the next Adept across the map is fine, and I really do feel he's just going to be getting glaives.
Yeah.
Constant Adept production. Yeah, this is the classic Neeb build. We saw him when he went over to Kesper Cup, just splitting apart the Korean Zergs because they just hadn't seen such a crisp Adept timing before. Neeb is the guy who basically just won so many matches back on Frozen Temple with this. And here, Abyssal Reef's a short rush distance. TLO's taken the third base towards him. They're going to get over there so quickly.
Oh, I'm surprised actually he lets that one finish off, because I think he could have taken care of those Lings on the high ground, and keeping your Adepts alive I think is very important. But he does get 2 drones for his efforts. But I think if he cancels that shade there, he picks up the Lings on the low ground, and You know, obviously, when you go for an adept timing by any sort or a follow-up with Glaives, every adept that you keep alive after your early game harass makes your push a little bit stronger.
Absolutely, but he's already put a dent in very early, so you definitely can't just kind of dismiss, you know, the early damage, a bit of lost mining time. Even 2 drones when you're only at 25-30 is a big chunk. So I think definitely it'll weaken his later pressure for the first wave, but if he does a second warp in of adepts, that's still going to be a very powerful 7, 8, 9 adept timing, somewhere around there. And with the Robo coming down behind it, who knows, we might see a whole lot of more extra gateways go down. We might see the old school adept all in hitting.
TLO is just trying to be annoying here with a couple of links. Good reaction time there by Neeb. But Neeb is wasting quite a bit of time here. This is that phase in the game where you want to be aggressive. The moment that Glaives finishes up, that's kind of when you want to have your adepts in your opponent's face. That's not when you want to have your adepts on your side of the map running after a couple of Zerglings.
Roach Warren is only just started though, Roddy. There's no bailingness. TLO is basically fully reliant on mass Zerglings to surround this, and don't get me wrong, you can do that, but he's going to need the sickest surround to make this defense happen.
And a little bit of Queen support as well, either to tank some of these shots or just to, you know, add some extra DPS. I feel like this Adept push is not...
He's hiding the Zerglings, he's hiding them. The Adepts, they don't see it until right now. Is he going to let the Shade finish? I think he has to.
Cancel this.
Oh, he's going to try and fight. He's got the back of the cliff up against his wall, limiting the surface area. The Adepts are making a good account of themselves. The Zergling count starting to dwindle. More Zerglings in the way. Roach is finally starting up, but Neeb here, he's taking a massive economy lead behind this.
Yep, and we know how good Neeb is. Once he starts having an economic league, he's going to get a few more Zerglings for free there as well. 44 links have gone down. Quite a few Roaches are being forced out there. The only downside for Neeb, I think, is that his third Nexus was a tiny bit late, but he's going to have a field day here with all these Adepts. He doesn't have to let any Shade finish. He's going to get a couple drones for free as well. Our WCS Austin champ is looking good here in game number 3. TLO looking for the counter, and TLO needs this counter desperately. He needs to get the cancel. Will he be able to get it, though?
At the same time, Neeb dives into that main base, starts to focus down the drones there. The Roaches and Queens a little bit slow to the party. These Adepts going to continue to be frustrating even while Neeb tries to defend that third base. And will TLO get the cancel? I'd love to see that third base. It looks like, no, he's not going to quite be able to get it. That Nexus is going to be saved by that Mothership core. And these Adepts are just going ham, Roddy. 52 probes to 27, and it isn't even over yet.
No, this is a disaster right now for our German Zerg. Not getting the cancel on the Nexus was pretty much, you know, the only thing he could have hoped for. If he cancels that base, keeping Neeb as a 2-base Protoss, then you always have a shot as a 3 hatchery Zerg. But now TLO is down 30 workers. Like, how on earth are you supposed to turn that around? When you just have Roach stack as well, it's not like he has, you know, Swarmos out or a couple of burrowed Banelings or, you know, Infestors with Burrow and Neuro. He's got none of that. TLO is a very broke Zerg who's just losing more and more and more drones.
Neeb continuing to pick those workers off. He's got more pylons up at his third. He's got Immortals on the way as well as Sentries. Combined with Overcharge, it should be more than enough to deal with these Roaches. TLO turning tail and running there with that force. He's trying to drone up behind this. He doesn't want his tournament run to be over here. TLO has really stepped up his game recently, but he has had a lot of bad luck in tournaments with his brackets, and it's continuing here. He's going to have to make his way through Neeb, but I mean, it looks like the dream might be dwindling. He's going to try and use Swarm Hosts to get back into it. That is one of the best comeback tools you can try to use in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely one of the only ways he could possibly have. But it's still going to be so hard. We saw how clean that timing was that Neeb just had on Defenders Landing against the Broodlords, and that was a much closer game than this is. There's no other way to spin it. Everything went Neeb's way. The Adept move out was perfect. First time not cancelling, second time letting the Shade finish up. Just did an insane amount of economic damage and had just enough at home to keep his Nexus alive. I mean, there's nothing more that our American Protoss could have hoped for.
Yeah, the 3 hatch before pool build here, not quite working out for Dario. Trying to bring out some of that creativity, trying to throw Neeb off.
Takes a lot of damage.
Oh, okay. All right, Neeb, a little bit too deep there. That War Prism going down does take a lot of his presence off the map, but he's already pushing across with his main army at the same time. He's got a 4th base on the way, Rotterdam.
But pushing out when you don't have a Prism is always a little bit risky, so I do feel like TLO shutting down that Prism gives him a chance. Like, obviously, I don't love his position, don't get me wrong, but I feel that TLO has a tiny chance now because it's very unlikely that Neeb is going to make his victory march across the map without a way to reinforce his army, right? So with Swarmos. There is a tiny bit of a dream. But don't forget that this was a disastrous start for TLO.
And that first wave of Locusts is going to be hitting the natural now. TLO needs to get a lot of probe kills. Neeb's already going towards those Swarmos
as well.
Yeah, those Swarmos are getting cornered right now. The Locusts do get 8 probe kills. It's a nice start to think. A couple of Swarmos do go down, though. Neeb's so well prepared for this, knowing what TLO's been using throughout this tournament.
2 Swarmos already went down, and this one Zealot is on a mission. TLO knows it as well.
Oh, he gets it. That's massive. Right now, Neeb.
What? No, don't run away from your Locust.
All of this down.
Look at his Zealot, man. His Zealot's on a rampage. Okay, in the end, it does. But now these Swarmos are in the wrong position again, so there's a good chance that Neeb is just going to be able to clean this up. And that is, I mean, that's just another disaster for TLO.
Yeah, TLO way down in terms of workers right now. He's catching back up in supply, but it's mostly roaches. They aren't very valuable supplies, so numbers can be a little bit deceitful in this situation. These last 2 Swarmos get force field. They get knocked down almost instantly by those immortal cannons. And now TLO, he's trying to drop an evolution chamber to start some upgrades. He is up against a vastly superior tech and sized army from Neeb, and Neeb has a 4th base up and running.
Can we take a look? How many Swarmos did TLO make in this game? Like, how many died? Because I guess all of them are dead.
I believe it was 6, yeah.
6, okay. I kind of feel like if you go for Swarmos, why not try to make like 9 or 10? Oh, Neeb getting perhaps a little bit eager there. Obviously, he has a very strong army, but a couple of Archons do get picked off immediately. Seems like TLO feels like this could very well be his moment, but the extra powerful units of Neeb are showing up there in the back. More Immortals, more Archons, and there's a good chance that this is going to be it for our German Zerg, unless he somehow makes a, well, remarkable hold.
Neeb, the reigning WCS Austin champion, not ready to bow out just yet. He has brought it back from being down 0-1 this series with a fantastic Game 3. Mega decisive play. He pushes TLO, and Neeb will be progressing through to the round of 16 of WCS Jönköping.
Still in the running to go back-to-back after it looked a little dicey being down 0-1 with his tournament life on the line. Shame for TLO, who's been playing incredibly well lately, but in this tough group with Drogo, with Stever, and of course with Neeb here as well. But it's good news for our Americans, good news for the American Protoss fans out there as well. As this young man has advanced, he's probably quite happy. I hope, I don't know if Sue can hear us, but I hope we get get Neeb's impression about the map pool that he was able to play on, because I think that is like the best thing you can hope for as a Protoss.
Yeah, I got to agree there. You know, it was a very, very different map pool to what we're used to seeing. Now let's go hear from the man himself. Thank you, Sue. Take it away.
Thank you very much, guys. Sorry for that break there, but Neeb, let's just jump right into it. I know it's been a very long day. The casters actually wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on that map pool as a Protoss player, because that's not something that we're used to seeing as much.
It's not too bad, I don't think, in best of 3s at least, because I can veto both of the really hard maps to win Defenders and Blood Boil. So it's really only a factor in like best of 5 or best of 7.
Now, speaking about this series, as the currently reigning WCS champion, as you were the champion at Austin, it came down to this decider match with TLO where he took the first map. And I think a lot of people were surprised to see that, just because it's not anything to say about TLO, but I think a lot of people would have thought that you were the clear favorite. So what are your thoughts on that?
This is literally the exact same thing that happened at Austin, where I was down 1 game against TLO in the decider match. So it was the exact same situation. And I think I played pretty well in the last 2 games. It was a bit frustrating, though, because they delayed our series for the mainstream to cast. That was really annoying, kind of tilting, but besides that, I played well.
Do you feel bad to TLO at all? It's kind of like rubbing it in his face over and over. Best player wins.
Yeah, I don't really feel bad. I mean, it's just a bit unlucky, I guess.
Last question for you. I know that there are so many strong Zerg players at this event. Some Protoss players have been talking about that particular matchup. What are your personal thoughts, and who do you think the biggest threats are?
I think PvZ is quite harder now. A lot of it's due to the maps, and a lot of it is that we've been playing the same style for so long, and we need to try some new things. I don't know how good they are, but I have a lot of things that I want to try at least.
And of the Zerg players that we have here, we have so many. I think just to name a few off the top of my head, you know, Cyril, a lot of people are talking about Nurcio, always a classic, and of course people like Alazer as well. So what are your thoughts on those particular players?
Yeah, I think Cyril and Laser are both very, very good in ZVP. Like, even better than some of the Korean Zergs at some things, which is very impressive, I think. So they're probably the scariest.
That's definitely high praise. Well, congratulations again on moving on to the round of 16, and best of luck there. We'll be wrapping it up here in the tournament area for today, but let's head back to Nathaniel so he can end the show.
Thank you very much to Neeb, bringing things back from that 0-1 start to TLO. You could see in his face in that interview, he is a very tired young man. It is just about 11 p.m. here in Jönköping, and he has had quite a, well, ordeal to make it through. A long day indeed for the day one of WCS Jönköping here, as our last winner is a Protoss player.
Our second Protoss player to make it to the round of 16, along with T-Drogo. We've got 9 Zergs already in there. I think it's 3 Terrans. And currently Showtime's playing against Skelazur in a rematch, in a deciders match, to try and find out which of these two will be making it to the round of 16. And I'm sad we're going to lose one of them, but I guess we have to eliminate some people here.
And Skelazur is 1-0 up in that series, and yet again against Showtime, so really seems to be his Achilles heel. Some of the players that have gone through, though, and this is getting to the latter stages of the tournament, Stefano actually came through in second in his group, which was Group F,
nice.
Along with Sortov, knocking out Iasonu and Sen. So pretty nice result from Stefano. Other results that have been kind of notable, True and Mana went out of Group C, with Cyril and Scarlet making it through, but, I mean, that was a ridiculously hard group. Like, just looking at this is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's been a long day of games. So many played out. We started all the way up. I think there was something like 80 players in the first stage right before we went live with the stream. We are going to be down to 16 by the time all of these maps are done. Ask a couple thoughts, guys. Maybe favorite series of the day, player, anything that surprised you?
Just looking at these tables, sorry to interrupt you, Semper actually made it through first in his group, which was Group B, and he ended up beating Nurchio. So that's a really big result from our Canadian Terran there. Like, he's been on the up and up.
3 Terrans toppled their group. What's going on with
8
that?
groups. Yeah. Who'd have thought it, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Certainly not the Terrans according to them.
with that?
Wait, when you put 3 Terrans in a group and a Terran wins the group, that's a surprise, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, really,
Actually,
really rocked your
listening
socks,
to you guys, it should be the other race that should win the group,
I
right?
don't whine, I don't complain.
All right.
All right, well, we've had a long day of StarCraft here. Tomorrow, we will resume with the round of 16. Before we go, I do want to say some of the other matches in these groups are being finished up on other community streams. Feel free to check those out, guys like O Gaming and Take. But that is going to be it for us today here at day one of WCS Jönköping. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow.